In 2015, the Barangaroo Reserve on Sydney Harbour opened to the public. 240 years ago, Barangaroo lived here. This is her legacy through the eyes of senior Aboriginal women who live in Sydney today.
If you go back 200 years, then certainly there would have been beautiful natural waterways and, vegetation. So to see this recreated, and they've actually honoured and revitalised Barangaroo is magnificent.
Barangaroo was such a special woman, and now she's pretty visible and people want to know more about her, I think.
I agree with you. I think people need to know about what a strong Aboriginal woman she was.
I would say that Barangaroo is one of the heroines of the Australian story. She was a woman of First Nations. She was a woman that saw what life was like before British colonisation or invasion, whatever you want to call it, and survived.
I think that in many ways it's a precinct that represents very much who she was as a person. There's the water, where she got her livelihood, her living. No doubt it was her inspiration as well. We all love a day on the beach and out on the water.
So they were fisherwomen, yeah? They had canoes, they travelled extensively on the waterways, travelling quite a distance out to, beyond the heads, not just contained to the harbour. And they're on these quite narrow canoes, sometimes with their children on board. There are accounts of up to 3 children, and a little clay flat bed that had a fire for preparing fish, sort of on the spot. So, fishing, eating, there are stories of the women paddling in unison, singing, talking, laughing. So you have a sense of quite a united group, very active, and as key providers for their entire community.
I know that discovering the story about Barangaroo helped me to discover or rediscover a little about myself and about my family and my community and my people's history in this place. It sort of uplifted me and empowered me and reaffirmed a lot of things that I know intuitively about who we are as a people. And we know that some of my ancestors actually camped around the Barangaroo site itself. So yeah, there's a very interesting and very powerful connection.
The naming of that site opens up a whole new conversation about women, Aboriginal women. So often women are left out of these early colonial stories because the colonisers, they assumed a kind of patriarchal society. On one occasion, the Europeans, thinking that they could offer gifts, they hauled in something like 4,000 Australian salmon and gave that as a gift to the Eora men. And she was really angry about it, that those men had accepted the fish. And so we might interpret her actions as her wanting to maintain and reinforce the position of women in their clan group as powerful providers for their mob.
She fought for the right. She didn't like Bennelong going and I suppose talking with the government at the time and telling them all about Aboriginal culture. She wanted us to keep our culture and for them not to destroy it.
She stood up for her rights when she went to Parliament House. She went into Parliament House without a stitch on, only a skirt. And she was painted up, and when they asked her, where are her clothes, she can't come in, she said, "This is my dress," and she just walked straight past them with her head in the air, and I thought that was really great be a woman of that dignity and to be feisty about it and do it. And she sat at the table.
A healer, a guide, a mentor, a linguist, a thoroughly remarkable woman, an intellect, a kind person, an empathetic person who incorporated people who came into her life. She didn't have it in her mind at all that she was going to reject these people coming into her country. She helped to make their stay, what she thought their stay, not their long-term permanent stay, but make their stay as pleasant as it possibly could be, as any good hostess would.
It's very rare for women to appear in these kind of colonial documents, right? And I think it says a lot about her. You know, I think there's a lot we can appreciate about her and the way she interacted with those Europeans. I think it gives us a real insight to gender politics in, you know, traditional society, and also the sort of power that she and the other fisherwomen who she was a part of, the kind of power they had and their resourcefulness.
And I think for the wider community, understanding that role of Barangaroo and Barangaroo the woman and the significance of having an iconic place in Sydney named after such an outstanding and important female Aboriginal person. You know, there's a tremendous opportunity for learning and a deeper appreciation.
There's a direct connection between our strong Aboriginal leaders amongst the women, our women, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander, across this country.
I would like people to try and stand in the shoes of Barangaroo as a person whose experience of change must have been traumatic, whose own life experience of seeing her 3 children not make it to adulthood, but as a woman who shone in Australian history and was a leader in her own right.
I would like to think that down through the decades and generations, that Aboriginal women have still fought that same fight right up until today, and we're still doing it. And I think that she's our legacy. She's the one that we learn from.
It's her living memory and legacy of what she did. That's what gives me strength, and I know that the strength that she possessed, I've certainly been influenced and inspired by a lot of women in my family and in my community that represent the same strength. They have the same amount of strength as what this incredible lady Barangaroo had. You know, they are some unbelievable ladies, you know, unbelievable balance.